Welcome to the Asset Revolution podcast, where each week your hosts from Arbor Digital provide educational opportunities for financial advisors and individual investors to gain knowledge in this emerging powerhouse that is digital asset investing. The Asset Revolution podcast is your connection to the future of digital assets and an opportunity for anyone to get off zero. Let's dive in. All right, everybody, welcome back to this edition of the Asset Revolution podcast. I am humbled to have with me today Steve Larsen, who has been a previous guest on the podcast, but we felt we needed to dive into something that's recently come up this past year that is an offer to advisors and subsequently their clients that they may have already seen. So I wanted to bring them on and just dive into it. But before we do, Steve, just give a quick reintroduction to the audience.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for having me. So last time you buried me in a panel, which is probably a good move, limit the amount of damage I can do, but you've got me back one-on-one now. So I'm really excited to talk with you about this, everything we have going on. So I am a CPA and a certified financial planner. I teach financial planning and cryptocurrency at Gonzaga University on an adjunct basis. I run a investment advisor firm here in the Northwest. And I guess since a lot of your clients are in Alaska, I should say the Pacific Northwest. I'm actually down in Washington. A lot of your clients are farther northwest than me. And then also along with Adam started the PlannerDAO. And that's really what's been driving a lot of the neat projects we're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And speaking of those projects, that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Two of the main ones. The first one we're going to dive into is the PlannerDAO Digital Asset Opportunity Index, which is a mouthful, but it's worth it for the mouthful, I assure you. Yep. And then the second thing we're going to dive into later on in the episode is going to be around this first decentralized financial services in-person event that's going to be held in Kansas City called Crossroads. So I'm excited for us to dive into these two things. So let's get right in. Steve, tell us what the PlannerDAO Index is.
So the PlannerDAO Digital Asset Opportunity Index, and you're right, it is a mouthful, but we had to get to a cool ticker symbol for it. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. But what it is, it's an opportunity for people who have never had a chance to build wealth previously, anywhere in the globe, to have a trustworthy investment, core investment to go to create wealth for themselves. So part of what our mission is at the PlannerDAO is to equip financial planners, fiduciary financial planners specifically, with the tools they need to do their job. And that can look like a bunch of different things. It can be just the community, it can be legal and compliance work, it can be investment research. And the more I thought about this, the more I thought, okay, we really need a solution here that can be a core holding that isn't going to be influenced by Wall Street, by even some of the emerging crypto trends, that's managed by people who are familiar with our client base, with how we do business, with the tools we need to help people grow wealth. And really not just our existing high net worth clients. They, of course, deserve our best service, but also we want to deliver wealth creation opportunities using digital assets to people who haven't had access to them before, because in a lot of ways, that's what crypto is all about. And so this is a tool to do that. And it was missing in the marketplace. And I think PlannerDAO really needed to be at the forefront of creating it.
Wow. Okay. So let's unpack that a little bit. So building this index, got into a little bit of the why. It's really important in the trend of index investing. Bringing those types of investment products has been, crucial to the industry just in traditional world, right? Like, S&P 500 indexes, bond indexes, whatever you can think of, there's been an index created for it, right? And so providing these kind of low cost, low barrier opportunities to investors, but then it sounds like this is revolutionary in a couple of ways. One is that this is global, right? You don't need to be based in the US, right? If I heard that correctly.
Correct.
The second, I think it's no fees, right? That's very, very low cost. Did I hit that?
You did. And certainly no, obviously crypto gets a little confusing with the terminology. There's certainly zero management fees or asset fees or anything. There's, of course, blockchain transaction fees, but there are no management fees involved, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So that's kind of the idea of this podcast, right? Is like we want to do things that we want to highlight things that are happening, that are coming down the road, that are revolutionary, that are going to contribute to the evolution of where we're going. So this index, I definitely see as playing a huge role in that. So maybe let's talk about the current like index landscape when it comes to crypto, right? Like I think we've had little to no solutions for the last 5 to 7 years, even, and let's not go even further than that when Bitcoin first came in 2008. But really there has been a need, right? So I think one of the things that stood out to me was that there is this huge need that hasn't been solved yet, that you guys are coming in and that PlannerDAO has created with this index. But how do you compare it to what's currently offered?
Yeah, so when we looked at what was available out there and what are the options to index right now, there's some solutions, but they all are making trade-offs in a lot of areas, which is understandable. So a lot of the original crypto index efforts, or something like Coinbase launched one in 2018, and they launched one that you could buy in Coinbase that crossed multiple chains and tokens, but it was only available to accredited investors. So the startup investor, the typical investor, and basically for the people listening who haven't heard that term, that's anybody with under a net worth of $1 million in general. You can use that as kind of a rule of thumb there for this discussion. They don't have access to it. And so, well, that's not really going to work. As a matter of fact, Coinbase shut that down, and it was only available at Coinbase. So it wasn't universally accessible. Then we have more recent efforts, again, coming from the traditional sector. So the Wisdom Tree Ritholtz Index they launched, and that's a great effort, but there's a few things that I think we needed to fix with that one. One is it's only available to clients of that particular investment firm. So again, it's not accessible. And number two, it crosses multiple chains, and so you can't buy it with one trade or one symbol. You basically have to buy all the individual positions, which again doesn't make it much of an index. So there's a few problems there. And then again, going to the on-chain solutions. So the index Coupe or CoOp, I'm sure we'll go back and forth calling it different things today.
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, they introduced fantastic on-chain indexes, and they do a really nice job, and I'm a big fan. And you can trade it with one trade or one symbol, and they're very efficient, and they're accessible for most anybody, anywhere in crypto, in any type of wallet in general, but they charge fees. And they charge fees that are quite a bit higher than our typical ETF fees and mutual fund fees that we charge clients out in the traditional world. So while they solved maybe two of the issues and two of the three pillars, then we're back to charging fees that are even higher than we're used to. And for maybe niche products or things that really take a lot of active work, that's great. They have a right to make money just like everybody else. But for a core holding, for the way to say, hey, you have never had an opportunity to build wealth, start here. It was really important we hit all three of those pillars.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I do want to dive into kind of listing out those three pillars just a little bit more succinctly. But I think one thing that also I think has been available that we didn't cover was, the Bitwise products, right? Those types of index that were developed by Bitwise, which, again, great, propelled the industry forward in the traditional space, got a lot of momentum built. So it's important to understand that a lot of rails just weren't built, and there was only certain rails you could go build on. So a lot of products or services or solutions that have been created so far in the index space really has almost been because we just didn't have the capability to, and this is just what was the best that we could do at the moment in time. So I think Bitwise did serve a really good purpose, and they did very well, and they gave exposure to, I think the Bitwise 10 is their most popular, which take a market cap weighting to the top 10 crypto. But there is an issue when it comes to indexing that specific way, which we won't dive into here, but high level, when you market cap index the top 10 weightings and you do some research and understand how the top 10 has changed dramatically over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and how it most likely is going to continue to go through, in the future, it's really hard to, for that, like you were talking about, as a core holding, to really gain that exposure in an efficient way. So highly inefficient from an investment as a core holding, but again, served a really good purpose for a long time, which is why I'm excited that this new index here that's on chain that goes into that kind of solves these three things. And there's these three pillars that's built on top of. So please go through the three pillars with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I'll do to set the groundwork for that is go into the academic paper that we're working on that should be released here in the next few weeks. So this is all really driven by, okay, if we're going to create an index, it really needs to be based in research, in the literature, in what has worked and hasn't worked for indexes in the past. And so with a friend of mine who's a PhD in finance at Gonzaga, we've been working through this project, and we got into the history of indexes. And Charles Dow launched the first index in 1896. He's tracking the price of railroad stocks, basically. And then later that kind of evolved into the Dow Jones. And the important thing going through the history of Dow Jones and S&P 500 is that indexes started as a way to track prices in the market. And that may seem very obvious. But when you look at how indexes are used today, that's not how they're used. They're used as investment strategies. And so during this process, we found one Bloomberg article that said, we think there are more indexes than there are publicly traded stocks right now. It's become almost a marketing gimmick to have your own index. And we're seeing that replicated out in the crypto universe. And of course, when I was creating this, I wanted to make sure it wasn't just another one of those. I wanted it to bring value and bring something new to the table. And so I started with the concept, with the theory of, okay, people aren't going to use this to track prices. That's what an index is supposed to be for, but that's not the reality. They're going to use it as an investment strategy, and they're going to use it to build wealth. So let's go ahead and incorporate that in. So as these indexes were evolving throughout the 1900s, what happened next was, of course, index mutual funds and Jack Bogle at Vanguard and the whole Vanguard revolution. So then index funds came along, and suddenly the index were more popular once you could see your portfolio go up and down in the same proportions as the ticker on the TV or what it said in the paper. Then those became very popular, and it was a huge step for the industry. And I think that's kind of the equivalent to where we're at now in a lot of ways with some of the indexes you can have. But what the paper is titled is Bringing the ETF Revolution to Cryptocurrency. And it's not bringing the index fund revolution, because although that was big, it wasn't until ETFs were available that things really took off. And so the idea is, if people are going to use this as an investment strategy, let's build it like one, and then let's make it accessible and free and available to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And so that's really the foundation for the paper. And so we worked through some different methods to make that happen.
Wow. So there's so much we could unpack there. A couple of things that stand out, again, that I think, because we've mentioned a few, index Coupe. I think the more accurate way to compare, if we're going to do an apple to apple, right? I think probably index Coupe is probably, would I be correct in that? Index Coupe would be the one to compare to a little bit?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that stands out to me here is this idea that it's being held as an investment strategy, as opposed to being held as, to track prices, or, for like, again, we use it, we need it for benchmarking, right? So I think that's one way this differentiates is, and obviously the other big way it differentiates from the index Coupe offerings are that the fees specifically, right? There's no management fee. Obviously, there's still the operation cost of transacting when you buy and sell the token on the blockchain. But that's huge, especially when you're trying to make something that accessible. Like, accessibility just isn't that, oh, I can go onto a wallet and I can buy it. Accessibility is also for those people who, don't want to get just bogged down by fees. And again, the academic research that we know that one of the primary drivers of wealth destruction are fees, right? And so it's inspiring to see that, wow, okay, so we're actually going to keep that in mind when building this index. Did that come into play, like, as you were working on this paper and doing this research?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a big part of just understanding from the beginning, like, it's going to be called an index, but it's going to be mostly used as an investment strategy. And when I took that detour there, you'd ask me a very clear question about the three pillars. So I'll circle back to that because I'd sidetracked with the academic paper. And the first one of those is what you're talking about, which is the broad market exposure. So to be a three pillar index, you have to cover the majority of the market or a broad swath of the market. And so this is where I think a lot of the indexes are falling short. So if we go to index CoOp and their biggest index DPI, and I'm a huge fan of DPI and have held lots of it in the past. Let's say lots percentage wise to what I own. I don't know what lots is for people listening,
Yeah.
but the issue is in the name. It's DeFi Pulse. It's DeFi, and there's so much more going on in digital assets than DeFi and decentralized finance. So it's only in that one little niche. So you're not covering exposure to the broad market. And with the slump we've seen in DeFi over the last 3 to 6 months, whatever it might be, you can see the limitations of that strategy as other things have taken off. And then I think the same issue exists on the other end. You go to a Bitwise or any other index we're going to bring up, and they do it market cap weighted. And basically you just end up with 80% Bitcoin and ETH. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of those and may very well think those are two of the best opportunities out there. But they're not an investment strategy. That's two holdings. And then they sprinkle in some other ones at 1 or 2% just because it's cap weighted.
Yep.
So again, if you're going to be a price tracking mechanism, great. If you're going to start with the premise that, hey, people are going to use this to create wealth, then you don't want to just simply grab the largest ones out there. Because I had some conversations, with many people to make sure I had this theory right. But that's akin to just grabbing the largest publicly traded stocks. Well, you're missing the ones that make the biggest run. You're missing the ones that go from small to medium to large. You're missing things at the venture stage. You're missing things at the angel investing stage, things we cannot do in the traditional stock market. So in our portfolios at Schwab that we manage for clients, right, we can't do anything except buy something that a venture capital firm has sold us, has let us buy. That's all we have access to. In crypto, that's not necessarily the case. We can access things way before that. And certainly there's plenty of, us helping the VCs get rich. There's no doubt about it. But the setup is different. We can get at things earlier. And so that really what drove, let's look beyond market cap. Let's not do another index that just says, hey, here's the 10 biggest, because you run into the problems of buying things that have already made people money and weighting it so heavily towards just a few things so that it's not diversified. And that's where it came to pillar one, broad market exposure. Let's hit all corners of the crypto markets because we want to drive growth and wealth creation.
Yeah. Well, and then I think it's important to know too that like index CoOp is also evolving, right? You can see that they have different index, they have the metaverse index now, they've now separated kind of the DeFi index, and they have these other indexes that they're following and building. So it's important to know that everything is evolving, but when you look and see, do I have just one thing I can buy? That still is missing. So again, I still think that solves that, but I thought it would be important to highlight that. But great, take us into what's pillar number 2.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And again, the stuff I can picture portfolios where there is a core holding of the PDAO supplemented, kind of a core satellite with all the amazing things that the index CoOp is doing, because they're fantastic. What I don't see them hitting dead on is once we can do crypto directly on chain in 401ks, what's the core holding that should be offered? If there's going to be an employee bonus, in crypto, what should that be? Like, certainly I think Ether is fine for now, right? But also there comes a point where that price stabilizes and there needs to be something more growth oriented. And this can solve that problem. Is there something you can tell your parents to go buy, right? That the rules aren't going to change, or there isn't going to be anything crazy happening. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And part of that is the second pillar, Mark, and that's the zero management fees. And so again, you got to be a little careful with the terminology out here because it doesn't always equate out to crypto. But myself, anybody involved in the paper, PlannerDAO, there is absolutely not one penny of revenue going back to anybody involved in it. Any revenue that or any fees that there are for transaction fees on chain that really can't be avoided. And so that's part of creating that trustworthiness, hey, this is the one you need. This is the one that's going to be the real deal, that's going to be around, that's not going to have those conflicts. Because even if you charge some management fee, then you even have an incentive to put a big name in there so you can market it. and skew what you're doing. So having no management fees, again, is a key to create this public good that our financial planners in the DAO are going to need to do their job long term.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Again, true accessibility, true, I guess, adherence to kind of the ethos of what crypto is bringing. And again, not just trying to replicate what we've done on the traditional side, really trying to take this and evolve into what does the new version look like that's going to be, that's going to give these wealth creation opportunities to everyone right around the globe. So I think that totally adheres to that. So yeah, let's dive into number 3 then. What's pillar number 3?
Yeah, absolutely. Number 3 is transparent governance. So people need to see what's going on in order to trust the investment. And this really gets back to how the DAO works, PlannerDAO, and all the other DAOs too. The goal is to be as transparent and decentralized as possible. And so when we're talking about an index that's managed not only by a bunch of professional investment managers, but also by a group of fiduciaries who have public meetings and public minutes and a public methodology, everybody knows what's going on and everybody knows the rules of the game. And down the road, if we want to make a major change to the index, because we're going to have to at some point, crypto evolves so fast and there's so many things going on, that's something the DAO can vote on. The committee can make a recommendation and they can say, hey, here's the change we want to make. We need to increase the number of holdings. We want to add a sector. We want to go from 7 sectors to 8 sectors here, and here's why. Yep. And the DAO can vote on it, and everybody can see that vote and see that discussion. And in our paper, I reference some commentary directly off the S&P Global website about the S&P 500, where the index committee, they're employees of S&P Global, and they have right there, we have the discretion to make changes outside of our methodology if we feel like it. And again, I don't have any gripe with how the S&P has implemented it or anything like that. But they can change on it. They can change and do anything they want at any moment and keep it quiet from us. And great, but that's not what crypto is about. Crypto is about transparency. It's about openness. It's about letting everybody know what's going on and how these rules are made. And that's what it's going to do. So we have right now it's a subgroup, but we will have its own working group, an index working group within the DAO that we've got seated with 3 or 4 people right now. And they will manage the index. And if there's any compensation, it'll just be in plan tokens, for keeping the DAO moving. But mostly people are just going to want to be part of management of what could be one of the best tools for wealth creation, right? Don't mean to sound so grandiose, but it could be one of the best tools for wealth creation that we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when I was researching and when the release of the index was first made public and I was reading all about it, I think one of the things that really stood out to me was this idea of decentralized governance, right, of an index. I think that was really exciting. I think that another reason why, I think we both kind of gravitated towards before this was available, going to index CoOp, was because it's a very similar structure, decentralized governance. And that's kind of, again, another evolution of where we're not just trying to copy of what we've done traditionally. We're trying to really move forward and, see what it's like if we implement all of these theories that we've been talking about within crypto, right? Decentralization and governance. So it's really important to actually do it, right? And so I think it's going to be exciting to see how this works. And so how do you become part of the governance that working? You mentioned a working group and the DAO. How do you even become a part of it then? What do you do?
Yeah, great question. So first, there's the flow from joining the DAO, getting involved in the conversations into a working group, and we encourage as many people as possible to come do that and help us out. We got a lot of work, a lot of good ideas we're working on.
Anybody can do it.
Yeah, anybody can do it. Absolutely, anybody can join.
Okay.
You don't even have to be an advisor. The caveat is long term. We want CDAs, people who are certified digital asset advisors, to be basically who has the voting rights in the DAO and is in the working groups. That's not a requirement because it's going to take a couple years to get there, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But right now, anybody can join in. So while we'll be focused around financial advisors, there's lots of CPAs, attorneys, programmers. We got some engineers who are here to support us that aren't necessarily advisors, but they can still be CDAs and care about fiduciary advice in the crypto space. So anybody can come join us. You can join a working group. Right now, it's being housed in the compliance working group. It's a good place to launch because we can make sure everything's good with the index. We got disclosures. We're doing what we say we're doing. And then we will launch, its own working group here in the next few months, and hopefully have 5 to 10, lots of CFAs, lots of financial advisors, lots of technical people in there. They can take the infrastructure that I've started, and there's lots of room for improvement once the CFAs come in and do their thing. So I'm looking forward to that.
Great. Thank you for walking through that. And I think maybe another thing we can walk through too is, so how does one get access? How do I buy? How do I sell? Like, tell us about the logistics behind how do I get some ownership in this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So liquidity for new tokens out in the crypto markets is something people are always struggling with, and we're off to a pretty good start here. The issue is, so maybe more for the advisors that are listening, it operates kind of like a closed end fund. So it's built on top of the SET protocol, and you go to our side on the SET protocol, which is on the index page, and you issue yourself new tokens. So basically you put in, let's say you put in $10,000, you'll get X amount of tokens that represent the underlying assets. The risk to you is only the underlying tokens, because you can go back and redeem those directly to the SET protocol and get issued, so right now it's 14 tokens, you can issue your 1 token back, get the 14 in return for the same value. However, it's kind of expensive because you're paying the gas fees on 14 tokens. So right now, we do have a trading pool up on Uniswap. So you can go to Uniswap, but more importantly, if you're using MetaMask or something, you can just paste the contract address into the swap and you can own it. Now, we all know mainnet's a little expensive. So I'm in the queue to get it added over to Polygon. And for those that don't know, Polygon used to add tokens really fast, and now they're adding about 5 a week. So something's going on over there. But we hope to be added very soon so people can buy it a lot cheaper. And then we'll also load it up here on the ZK Syncs, the Arbitrums, the Optimisms of the world as well. But for now, you can buy it just by putting the contract address into any swap feature on any wallet that you're using.
Okay. So a couple things there. So first, if you just listen to the last 30 seconds and you found yourself wondering what language Steve was speaking, that's your cue to start going into all of the education and sign up for the CDAA that he mentioned, the Certified Digital Asset Advisor course that's offered through PlannerDAO and a company called Interaxis run by Adam Bluebird, great friend of the podcast as well. Shout out, Adam. But so that's your cue. If any of that, and if you want to understand what that is, go take the course, because I guarantee you go take it, and after you'll know exactly what Steve was just saying, right? So that's my first thing, because we're not going to dive into it here because that's a lot to go into. And then the second thing, I guess, is the takeaway. If it was gibberish to you, then the takeaway right now for me, if I can encapsulate it for advisors listening, is right now, currently, there is no way that I, as a financial advisor, can buy and sell this on an exchange like a Coinbase or Schwab or anything and hold this for clients, correct?
That is correct. So you bring up a really good point. I think the path here for the index is theory to implementation to adoption. And so the theory is the paper, and that research was done, and we're just finalizing to get it ready for some academic journals to submit to. The implementation is what happened on the first of the year, and that's just creating the token, creating the Uniswap pools. And so through phase 1 and 2, we're still in very technical land here, whether it be financial research or crypto implementation. Absolutely. And so at this point, you might say, well, that's great, but if you're talking about people across the globe using it for their first investment, that's not what I'm hearing out of what you're describing so far. But number 3 is the adoption. So that is where we do have just the one symbol, the one ticker of PDAO available on any wallet you open at any time. And that's going to take a little bit of time to get to, but I'm hoping in a year or so we have enough volume, we have enough liquidity, we have enough assets in it that it will start being added to Coinbase, to Gemini, to every wallet, that it'll be on the Uniswap, it'll be on the CoinGecko price list that we all use. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get there, but definitely right now there is a gap between the mission and the availability. But that's what the index committee is going to focus on, which is how do we close that gap and make it so it's the first thing people see when they open up that starter app and start investing.
So one of the things I think important here to talk about as well is kind of how this index was created as well, right? Like who How was it invested? How is this being supported? All that. Can you talk to a little bit? Like, was this VC backed? Were there some investors? Is this personal? Is this all run by the DAO? Is there a treasury behind it? Tell us a little bit how even that got started.
Yeah, great question. So it was certainly not VC backed and no early investors. So it was. So I think the most, because I try to be accurate about this. So it was it was created by myself. None of this is possible without the DAO, and it's definitely a community owned project. But to be accurate here, so I'm definitely spent my time creating it and doing the research and getting it implemented and everything that goes along with that. But it's absolutely owned by the DAO. So the DAO owns the index. The DAO has the committee that runs the index. And what it means to launch is really, me being on Ethereum and pressing the button and paying the gas fees and making it live. And then we definitely had friends of the index who I asked if they could help us build some liquidity. And then, there were people who put in a few $100,000 to help us get it going and issue out some tokens and put it in the Uniswap pool. And I think we, maybe have around $400,000 in seed assets into it. And so once we get it on some other platforms like a Polygon and some cheaper ways to buy it, we really think the adoption will start to go up drastically, and it can be a little more convenient to buy. And as this thing adds, 1 million at a time, it'll pick up momentum. So back to your question about the history, definitely just kind of some elbow grease and doing the research, getting it implemented, getting something built to start. And then now the talented people in the DAO will be taking it over and improving on the 1.0 that I threw out there.
Yeah. All right, everyone, you just heard it. So no need. There's not going to be a 10-year, identity search on who the Satoshi of PlannerDAO was, of PlannerDAO token is. We already know it was Steve. So that, just to clear that up before we get too far ahead. But no, that sounds great, because I think it's important to talk about I think ICOs, IDOs, any other ways that projects are launched. I think there's a fair bit of skepticism a lot of times, really what's really going on underneath the hood. Is this so I thought it important to ask that question so that way people can understand that this is not a money grab. This is not something that is meant to be just a short-term thing, and who really owns it is really important. So thank you for going into that.
Yeah, the founders wallet in Bitcoin, right? They were smart enough that if they need to, they can grab that and have assets with how the indexes work and the SEP protocol and everything is built on top of. You can verify that there's no hidden founders wallet here. So either that will give you confidence that you're at the right place, or it'll make you skeptical that it was created by somebody not smart enough to grab a little bit for themselves. So yeah, you could probably look at that one either way.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. Well, thank you for taking us through the PDAO index. I hope everyone's learned a little bit kind of about the future of index investing a little bit, and how on-chain management is going to revolutionize that from what we currently experience today. Huge benefit from the episode that I wanted to get on. I think we did. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about now decentralized, at a decentralized event called Crossroads. So tell us a little bit about that, Steve.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm really excited about the Crossroads event. Like you said, it's going to be the end of April in Kansas City. A good time for advisors to get out of town is after tax season wraps up. Everybody's usually a little busier. Even if they're not preparing taxes, they're busier after tax season. And it's a good time for us to just maybe meet up and decompress. So we're excited to have it at that time every year. And talking with the group that met up in Austin, we were just discussing about, what can we really do to help kind of play out our mission here and do things differently. And we started talking about the idea of an event and a conference. And we have an opportunity to do that and take out everything we don't like about conferences. And, for the people that like the traditional advisor conferences, great news. There will continue to be unlimited options for you to go to. Mm-hmm. But it was time for something different, because there's a lot of advisors out there who are kind of on the periphery of the industry and don't get involved because the existing structures don't really incentivize them to go do anything. And I would fall in that category. And so for example, I don't know that I love the check-in table and the name tags and the organized lunches and and the keynotes and all of that. And that's great, just not necessarily my thing. And I know there's a lot of advisors who feel similar. And so really it was, how can we create something new and different where advisors can show up and learn instead of just watch PowerPoints the whole time, or have the first 15 minutes of a presentation be the background of the presenter and the things we're all used to seeing every time we tune into something. How can we do this differently? And so we came up with a lot of really good ideas as a group there. But chief among them was, let's learn. Let's do workshops. And granted, a lot of that is going to be speaking and PowerPoint presentations. We won't be eliminating those, but whenever possible, let's get out the laptops. Let's walk people through something. Let's have them press submit on their transactions at the same time as the presenter. And let's actually do some work here at Crossroads. And so I think that's the thing I'm most excited about.
Wow. So a couple key differentiators there. I love the idea of doing workshops and actually engaging. I feel like, and full disclosure, I was a part of that group that met up in Austin with a bunch of the other PlannerDAO members for a strategy meeting to discuss these types of things. And yeah, one of the things was more just getting more engagement, right? When you can actually take something tangible away that then, if I go back into my office, the next day or the next week, I want to go actually do that. I don't want to just, go and theorize and hear some people speak, get inspired, sure. Yeah. But then when I go back, it's like, man, how do I even implement this, right? And it becomes, I do my learning when I get back to my office, as opposed to what if we could learn while we were at the conference? And because that's what we've protected the time for, really, right? Because it's hard when you get back to your business, you're in your business, right? It's hard to work on your business when you're in it. And that was kind of one of the sayings, when I used to consult with all these big billion-dollar, advisors, single entity advisors, that's really hard. When you grow so much and you have such a big book, or even when you feel like you have no time to even go to normal conferences, right? Like the time you do protect is so important to work on your business a little bit. So I think for me, that was one of the big takeaways I had, that what I'm excited about this event is really like, oh, I can work on my business while I'm listening or while we're going through this and devoting time. And I think that's a huge differentiator, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I really like the way you framed that. Is, again, you get all excited and then you come back and you've got all this work piled up. And then by the time you get around to wanting to implement the cool stuff you learned or follow up on it, right, that the ship has sailed. So if you leave there with, kind of your 1.0 done and you've gone through the process and you've actually done it, it's a lot easier to pick up, and it's a lot easier to know where you want to go next. So that's a really good point. I think the other thing that we're really excited about the conference is that this is where we're going to focus on distribution of the plan tokens. So the plan token.
Tell me more.
Yeah. So the plan token is the native token of PlannerDAO. And we're still figuring out our tokenomics, our issuance strategies, and all of that. But one place we're going to give out, oh boy, all kinds of tokens is going to be at the Crossroads event. So when we have somebody signed up to teach a workshop, if they're also a vendor or a third party in this business, we're going to have them buy plan tokens from us, and that'll help fund the event. But with those plan tokens, they're then going to distribute them to the attendees. So whoever shows up for their workshops will then get those plan tokens. And now they can do it. They can airdrop them to everybody who's sitting in the room. They can have you go complete a survey. They can do an on-chain challenge. We hope that these speakers and these workshop teachers get super creative with how they issue their tokens, because there's a lot of possibilities, but we're going to see some tokenomics here.
Wait, so time out.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the spaces where I was going to get really excited to talk about this. Is, as an attendee, I'm going to be able to earn.
Every attendee will earn some tokens while they are there. So okay. Let's take a Gemini, for example, right? They want to come talk to a room full of advisors. We say, great. Why don't you throw in, why don't you sponsor $5,000 towards the conference? It'll help us pay for the event, the rooms, the technology, all that. We'd really appreciate it. Here's 5,000 tokens, Gemini, but those don't go in your treasury. Those get distributed at the conference to the attendees. So then they're going to have 5,000 tokens. They're going to have to give out in some capacity to the people that are there. So every attendee there will earn tokens, and will have an opportunity, quite frankly, to earn a lot of them if they want to.
So I think we just created a new category. Attend to earn is
yes. Yes, really good. I don't know that I've heard that. Absolutely, attend to earn. Yeah, we're pioneering the attend to earn category.
Well, let's think about it, because if you really think about it, a lot of these conferences that we traditionally go to, usually if you have a designation, right, you're getting CE credits while you go and you attend these different segments within, right? Whether it's a CFP, SEMA, CPWA, or any CFA, or any other, credentials offered from these institutions, right? So that's almost like, this is what I'm earning by devoting my time here on top of gaining the knowledge, right?
Yep, that's it. Yeah, that's exactly right. And there is some value in getting those continuing ed, but you make a really good point, because I think the reason people do that is to say, even if I don't learn anything, at least I'm getting an hour of CE.
Yep.
And it's going to be the same thing. Like, we're really confident in the lineup we're putting together. The advisors are going to love it. You're going to learn a ton. But if for some reason it's not your cup of tea, you'll at least earn some tokens. So it really, makes it kind of a win-win no matter what happens there for you.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out. And let's be real here. Again, this is very much experimentation and pioneering and on the frontier. But I think that's the whole point of PlannerDAO, right? Is that, and I think it's been a theme of this episode. We're not just trying to copy what we've been doing traditionally for the longest time. We're trying to take this into the new era, utilizing this technology, utilizing these new communities in ways that are being enabled through it, to take us to the next level and help us serve our clients and each other better. And I think that's what gets it for me. I want to serve my clients better every day. That's my motivation. And then when I make a connection with someone like yourself or other industry professionals, one of the things I always, kind of took back is like, man, I met like a couple great people, but it's really hard to stay connected to them and to feel incentivized to stay connected to them, right? Like in my offices, like I had a great study group or a great working group that we would do where we'd debrief on client situations or, wealth strategies that we were implementing, whether it be complex, generational things. Like those were always truly valuable. And what I really love about PlannerDAO is we're trying to make that to where everyone feels like they have that, because not every advisor, and especially if you're an independent advisor or if you're building a lifestyle more centric firm, where you're where you're just a 1 or 2 person shop, like it's hard to really do that. And PlannerDAO is solving for that in a big way. And I think this event is just another evolution of getting us there.
Yeah, that's really well said, Mark. There's 2 components, I think, for the advisor out there looking to do the right thing for their clients and looking for those solutions. Number one is the community, which you just covered really well. And I think that's what we're doing. And the second thing is really removing the gatekeepers. So one of the reasons advisors are skeptical, as a lot, is that we're used to all the information we get coming through a gatekeeper, being filtered by someone. It's filtered by a custodian, by a fund company, by a broker dealer, by a software provider, by a compliance expert. Everything we get is filtered. There's gatekeepers everywhere. So we're not just talking about the middlemen and the products, we're talking about the gatekeepers of information. And what PlannerDAO is doing is just getting rid of the gatekeepers. The DAO is open. The community is open. Anybody can come present. There's just, you can connect with anybody and hear what they have to say. It's open in a way that no other forum in this industry is. So we build the community and we take away the gatekeepers, and what's left is clients. Clients come first in that model. And I think that's what we're seeing and just starting to see the very beginnings of, honestly.
Ooh, I love that. Clients come first in this model. That's there you go. If you're listening to this, tweet it out. That's the line right there from Steve Larsen. Clients are first in this model. I love it. And it's important because it's something we preach as advisors. And I know there's a lot of people who in traditional world too, like and again, I think we get lost sometimes where people think, oh, we're just, we're moving on from traditional. No, there's a lot of great things, a lot of great people who've done a lot of phenomenal things for clients and serving people. And we always want to say that the client comes first, but a lot of times it's really tough for that to actually happen. And this is where, if we can set up an environment and a system to where that's truly the North Star and where we can actually accomplish that, then we have to at least try it, which is, I think, why the group of us are so ingrained in this and so committed to it. But let's dive in a couple of things. So if you're listening to this, you've maybe heard, oh, you mean anyone can come and join? That's kind of what makes this event decentralized. So Steve, real quick, tell people if they want to present or want to actually come offer their expertise at the event, how do they do that?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to the PlannerDAO.com website. So if you go there, we do have a link to Crossroads 22 right at the top. And on there is a form you can submit. So first of all, there's a link to register. So obviously I encourage you to do that. If you want to speak, there's a form. And also during the registration process, you can indicate if you'd like to be contacted to present at the workshop. So either through the registration or from the website, get in touch, tell us what you want to teach, what you really think advisors need to learn that you can show them. And we'd love to have a conversation about how to set that up for you.
Oh, I love that. So yeah, so the gatekeepers are gone. You don't need to feel like you can't access this. If there's something you feel that you can bring value to, especially when it comes to wealth advisory in regards to crypto, I know I'm excited for some of the guests that are coming on. And just as a little teaser, if you're still listening with us, we've got a couple of those guests coming on to talk about some pretty cool wealth strategies that we can take that we've learned from traditional world and apply them to this new generation of investors who have built some wealth. And now it's time we have the strategies to serve them. Which is what you're going to get from this Crossroads event on top of all the other great stuff. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, do you implement your wallet address too when you're kind of filling out that form?
Yeah, so we have it optional on there. It's all tied into the same technology for the event, so you'll have a chance to add it later. And for those of you that are just learning how this works, you have a public address. So there's a portion of your Ethereum address that it's okay to send to people. Yep. There is a portion that's not, that are called private keys. Do not do that, and we're not asking for them. But your public Ethereum address is just fine to share. And why we're doing that is that's how you get these tokens dropped to you. So now if you attend an event by a sponsor, they'll know you were there. They will give you a portion of their tokens for being there. And that's why we are collecting those addresses. If you don't know enough yet and you're skeptical, that's why that blank is still, or that field is still optional. You can make sure you're comfortable and then throw it in later if you want. But yes, we're collecting Ethereum addresses so we can share the tokens out.
Okay, wonderful. So you now have heard how to register, how to sign up if you want to speak. Here are 3 things why you would want to consider it for anyone who's listening. The first is tangible learning about this new space, right? You have to set up a wallet if you want to engage with the airdrop or get paid in the tokens, right? That's going to force you to, you know what, I'm going to have to learn by doing, right? A lot of people learn best by doing that. So tangible learning, I think, is huge, right? Rather than just theoretical and conceptually trying to learn it, right? The second is gaining new knowledge through a community, right? And truly doing it through the workshops and everything that we've talked about on this episode, rather than just sitting in a crowd and then waiting until the end of the day at a networking event to then talk to people about what you may have learned 4 hours ago that now you've probably forgot because you attended 3 other sessions in between it. And we all know we've all been there. So I think that's really huge, is where in the middle of your sessions, you're going to be learning, you're going to be speaking, you're going to be connecting with each other, which I think is a huge benefit. The third is going to be try something new, right? Again, protect that time to really work on your business a little bit. And really, especially if you are already kind of talking to clients about crypto or they're asking you a ton of questions, this is an easy way. Everything's being set up for you. You don't have to go and do this yourself. Come and get the education, come get the learn. So again, the protected time to work on your business because you're already working in it. That would be my third case for joining this crypto-centric, decentralized financial services event for professionals.
That's a great summary, Mark. And I think the last thing I would add to that is that it's going to be friendly for both beginners and degens. So whatever your crypto knowledge, so so that would be a degenerate in DeFi. That'd be somebody who wastes time and money out in DeFi to learn everything there is to learn. And there's a lot of those. So so for example, we'll kind of have 2 paths there loosely, which is one for people who are new to crypto. So you're not sitting there listening to 300 level classes when you're just getting started. And we'll have more advanced topics for people who have gone down that path. So for example, the first session on the first day in at least one of the rooms is going to be how to set up a wallet. So if you have interest in learning more about crypto, but you haven't got there and you're thinking, oh, they're asking for an Ethereum address, and I don't know what that word means, don't worry. You can show up with no knowledge and there'll be a path for you to follow to open a wallet, to get tokens, to make a transaction, to learn the basics as you go. So this is going to be friendly to all levels of crypto knowledge for advisors.
And thank you for adding that last one, because that's very, very important. Don't feel intimidated, no matter where you are on the education spectrum, to join. Everyone is very welcoming. I think you're going to find that, although if you only look at Twitter and Reddit and Discord, sometimes you may feel like, oh, I don't fit in here. I would say no matter what, there's places for you, and this space is very, very welcoming. So there you have it.
No, but that nice, good summaries of those markets. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be, it's kind of, we've got a name going in the background calling it the anti-conference, and we just want to make sure it's valuable. And the good news is it will be, but there'll be areas for improvement, and the community will improve what they want. We hope to next year vote on who gets to present and stake tokens to who wants to present, and really make it so there isn't any centralized DAO members deciding who's going to be there. We want to open that up as much as possible. So this is just the beginning.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, I hope you got as much value as I did, even from this conversation. I know I took a couple things away, even though I already knew mostly about it. So that's always fun. But if you haven't already heard, go to the PlannerDAO.com website, register for the event. It's late April. I don't have the exact dates. I don't remember. I think it's April 23rd to 25th, if I'm speaking off the top of my head. But follow Steve. He does a lot of tremendous work. Join the organization. Don't be shy. And then we will be back with more content like this. We're probably going to have Steve back on multiple times. But Steve, thank you so much for coming on, telling us about these two very important projects. And is there anything else you would leave with our audience with today?
Yeah, just real quick. So I had to check too. It's the 25th and 26th, that Monday, Tuesday of April. We're probably flying in the day before on the 24th, is why that's in your mind. So those are the dates. Come join us. No, and I would say the real point behind a conversation like this. So I think the index is really useful and is going to change a lot of people's lives. But I think the more important takeaway is the concept of what you can accomplish in the structure of a DAO and the structure of digital assets.
Mm-hmm.
There's ideas out there that are going to change the world that we haven't thought of and change this industry. And by joining and seeing what's going on, once you get up to speed, you will have your own ideas, but not just that, you will have the structure to implement them and the support to implement them. And that's what we're all about, is experimenting to get the best outcomes possible for our clients, and PlannerDAO is where we do that. So thanks for having me, Mark, and keep up the good work. You guys are doing a great job educating people out there about what's going on.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Asset Revolution podcast. Bye. We appreciate you listening to this edition of the Asset Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Mark Nichols. Please don't forget to let us know how you like the show by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen. For more downloadable digital asset resources and educational opportunities, please visit us at arbordigital.io. We are here to help you get off zero safely and securely. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to tell someone you care about them. Cheers.
We are financial advisors. However, we are not your financial advisor. Unless you're under contract with or actively speaking with Arbor Capital Management or Arbor Digital, a division of Arbor Capital Management. This podcast is just that, a podcast. It is not financial, legal, or tax advice. If you have individual questions, please reach out.